So, reading this book so far, it's kind of mixed emotions. I think I might be too close to it biographically. We both have Marine Corps fathers, and she describes hers as also being mystical and open minded. Um, and she went to college early for an associate's degree. I went to college early because I needed more advanced classes. So, similar but different. Um, Yeah, it's just some of these lines, it's interesting. I think that it's will definitely sound like a grieved white man, but it's like some of these lines just sound so they're so caustic and jarring, and to use the word de jour, shocking, or even a little weird. Um, she's just like, I knew I was the motherfucker that wanted to write it. It's like, I mean, if we're going off writing, like, that's kind of stuff you find in a bathroom stall. Um, Ever since Rabelais, of course, there's been a place for the vulgar to work rhetorically to bring out some deeper truth. And I guess what we're talking about here is sort of the verbal version of, I just looked at her Instagram. I've never had an Instagram account, even for a moment or once. So I can only see like what they show you, the little bit of the preview, and she's got some skin knees. And it's like, yeah, this is what I got out of the flat track. Evidence of suffering as an indulgent child. Not any skills, although I'm sure she got skills too. But yeah, I think that in some ways it seems like we're almost the same person. And I think she lives in Portland, so I probably shouldn't give a bad review. But there's a part here. I've had every kind of experience you can possibly have in every kind of motorcycle shop, including from a time when people were far more rude or brute or crass or what have you. And I'm reading this section, and it just sounds like something that would just never happen. And because I'm so often victimized, I have kind of seen how these situations unfold. And she'll say, well, but you've never been a woman in that situation. Whatever, your wife or sister, you have no direct knowledge, and that's true. But as someone who, despite his best efforts, codes as homosexual or transgender or otherwise queer, or even worse, an effete intellectual, I can assure you that, those prejudices have been extended to me as much as to, I don't know, it's just a very kind of white woman tears a little bit. And also this just never happened. It's not the way, it seems a little unrealistic. Chapter 6, friction. Oh, you should get the Canadian kid, Fortnite, to an actual physics major. Oh, this is so just like, look, Mom, I learned math. Okay, she knows math. She's gonna be a special girl. That summer, I bought the Rebel. I went to a local dealership to get it inspected. And as this is a state-warranted inspection, I don't know the rules where she's at, or just a general one. It was before I left to work at camp in Rowe, R-O-W-E. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. An hour north of my house in Northampton. In the service area, there was a makeshift office, nestled among the oil stains and the scattered tools, fitted with a desk, a water cooler, and 2 screechy rolling chairs. Roy, the proprietor, sat in one, me in the other. I watched as he rifled through a mound of paperwork on his desk, leaf by leaf, throwing nearly all of it into the waste bin, and I watched. Finally, he looked at me and asked for the second time what I wanted. An inspection, I repeated. He fell silent, threw a few more things away, let the pause go so long I wondered if maybe he had forgotten I was there. Again. Bring your bike up onto the line, he grumbled eventually. Actually, that's the one, I said. Like he wouldn't notice her moving the bike in and out of his shop. Okay. I mean, she's not very strong by her own description, not putting her down. I feel like that's what she's always saying. She's triumphing over. And did they trailer this bike here? How did this bike arrive? Right. I mean, this bike is all of a sudden on the white line and he hasn't noticed this. I find this preposterous. Actually, it's the one, I said, pointing to it. Parked with the front tire on the white line, just like he had asked, not 10 feet from where he was sitting. He made an unhappy little noise in his throat, as though being bullied. As though he'd rather not waste his time with this girlish intruder. Now, I can see that being sort of what actually happened. But, and of course the next part too, actually. But, some of the further escalations. The other younger mechanic who'd been making eyes with me since I walked in, that's very possible, unfortunately. I snorted under his breath. It occurred to me that I didn't know which one of us he was laughing at, but I suspected the joke was on me. Finally, Roy stood up, pulling himself by the edge of the desk. The chair rolled away from him as he got to his feet and chirped to a halt near the glowing yellow chopper parked next to the open door. He shuffled over to my bike, which looked tiny beside the hulking monsters that crowded the edges of the shop, took out a ruler from his shirt pocket, and started measuring the tread. He told me I needed to replace them soon, but he'd let that go for now. Cute little bike there, he said with a condescending smile. Okay, that sounds accurate. At least it starts with the right letter. The right letter is H, according to men like Roy, of whom I've met many. The right ending is ARLY. Letters that spell not only an all-American motorcycle manufacturer, because remember, we have to make it very clear that we hate America through this whole journey, or we're not going to get published. Letters that spelt not only an all-American motorcycle manufacturer, but an all-American lifestyle. That's her leap. That's her leap. And what is more American than her hyphenated last name, trips to India, meanderings, supported by familial wealth, clearly. I made what I hoped was a polite but discouraging sound. Squabbling over one's preferred make of motorcycles is infantile. Either it runs or it doesn't. Either you ride it or you don't. Okay. This is so performative. If you want to ride a Harley, then buy one. If you want everyone to ride a Harley, then move to Daytona and shut the fuck up about it. Can you imagine if I submitted this to get published as a manuscript? His huge midsection flattened out from his slight frame like a ballerina's tutu. Precariously balanced on his slender legs and his tiny tennis shoes feet as he moved around the bike, inspecting. He crouched down to check my oil, then the front axle. Leaning in close, he poked the brake pads with a pen. You're in trouble over here, he said, and stood up slowly. You need new brake pads. And now here's where we really depart reality. He paused and chewed his pen for a minute, then reasoned, but you probably don't know what those are. Okay, things that never happened, right? Everyone knows brake pads, bicycles, cars. It describes what it is in the title. Heretofore, she's been championing her stoicism and how she hasn't said how upset and the tantrum she's feeling internally. So, why is there, there's no reason for this negativity. And I say that as someone who receives a lot of undeserved negativity, unsolicited, for no reason. He paused and chewed on his pen for a minute, then reasoned, but you probably don't know what those are. I ground my teeth together with a squeak that made my head ache. Great emotional control. The younger mechanic snorted again and looked over at us, but I glared at him and he went back to his carburetor. I know what brake pads are, I snapped, but Roy wasn't listening anymore. He was lumbering back over to the makeshift office. He retrieved his chair from near the chopper on his way and rolled it back over to the desk. When he sat down, The scream of creaking metal was so shrill that I thought the springs might snap, but they held up admirably. So you can tell where the editors got in and did work. He shuffled through some more papers. I stayed by the bike. To soothe myself, I imagined knocking over the entire fleet of motorcycles. Why? You know, if you're a man and you had these kinds of feelings, one, it is messed up. And two, everyone would rightly identify it as toxic. But no, this is a power surge, apparently. I imagined knocking to soothe myself. To soothe myself. I imagined knocking over that entire fleet of motorcycles like shining flawless dominoes. Okay, they're the editor doing work again, crashing down one atop another. They would topple, starting with that chopper, until they had all crumpled into one long metallic mountain ridge. I imagined the silence that would follow. Not really. The eerie moment of an echo. The final crunch of a mirror splintering. Do mirrors crunch when they splinter? They shatter. They crunch when you step on them, maybe? Are we just making up metaphors? I'm gonna pass this time. I'm gonna pass you this time, he finally said, like it was against his better judgment. Okay, so this is a state-mandated thing, which is what you wanted, right? And it sounds like a little bit later that he shouldn't have. But get those tires replaced and don't forget about your front brakes. You want a quote? No, I can do it myself, I lied. Which is fine. But, you know, maybe you shouldn't be so arrogant to assume that you're the best at everything in the world. It's like, could I do it myself? Yes. Is there someone that could do it better? Is there someone that does it all day? You know, like how the editors are really good at writing. No, I can do it myself, I lied. I would figure it out eventually. Maybe RIGDHEN could give me some pointers. So this is the guy that she friend zones and cucks into doing it for free. So rather than pay a hardworking, trained professional to do a job, she's like, no, it's more ethical to just have this guy do it for free, or she gives him a pack of American Spirits or something. I said thanks as gracefully as I could manage. Oh wait, no, so chuckling, Roy ripped off a receipt for the inspection from his pad and handed it to me. If that don't work out, you feel free to come back and I'll give you a good deal. I said thanks as gracefully as I could manage. $15 sounds good. $15 sounds good, man. I think we're up to like $200 an hour at the fancy Portland places. I said thanks as gracefully as I could manage, not very, forked over $15 and hit the pavement. The sun was out. I had the day off, and it was only the beginning of my first motorcycling season. I let my arms hang slack from the handlebars and my shoulders relax. Then I opened up the throttle and knocked the rebel up a gear and let her do the rest. Then we get to learn about 4th grade physics. Then we get to hear about frozen pistons in the front brake. It's already a 14-minute video, but it sounds like an issue. We're putting wood and using vices to pry apart these brake pads. Oh yeah, that seems totally fine. Totally safe. But remember, we're not celebrating excellence. We're celebrating how much we put ourselves into jeopardy, because the fundamental arc of this book, as far as I can tell so far, is embellished narcissism. It's pretty bad, dude.